morning, everyone. Um, the great thing about group housing, the business in which most of us over here are engaged, the days is that you can get opportunities of collective living which are not accessible to you if you are going to build your own house on your own piece of land. Especially if you're already busy as employed and earning for your family, and you really don't have the time to invest in building your own home. It's going to be much more difficult as time goes on in cities too. So this journey is about the opportunities of collective living, and we're going to look at that and see how, as participants in this work, we all have a role to play towards making a comprehensively better world for living in. We don't only need the basic needs to be fulfilled when we build our homes or when we go to live in a new home. The basic needs being health and sanitation and safety. And of course, the assurances of what I call environmental requirements: water conservation, energy efficiency, and greenery around you. This environmental security is an essential need. If in the process of building we don't provide environmental security, then we are compromising our future. And this is basic need. But we need something more than that. We need, through the process of building and living a new life, a growing self-esteem and eventually self-fulfillment for all members of society. And let us say that providing sound homes for living in is this journey, making this a possibility. And making it as a possibility at an affordable price today is our challenge. This is the work that we are really engaged in. Well, we had a glimpse of it in Mona's presentation just now. At the rate we are building in this part of the world, or in China, or in Nigeria, at the rate we have populations are growing and the rate we are building in cities, we as a nation are going to be a significant contributor to climate change, which is already on its way. So we cannot run away from this responsibility. And most of this is happening in our cities, dotted across the entire subcontinent, as you can see here. And these cities continue to grow. They become bigger and bigger. And the bigger they become, the greater the environmental footprint human habitation is going to have. I believe that to be affordable is only possible when you are sustainable. And if you are sustainable, you are likely moving towards affordability. I hope this will become clear as we move on. Not only do we have to be efficient in the use of our resources, material resources and financial resources, not only do we have to produce buildings in a manner that produces less carbon emissions, either in their construction or in their operation, we also have to make sure that all of this is done at a price that our buyer with incomes less than 40,000 rupees a month can afford to pay. The green triangle in the middle is the zone of solutions. Just keep this diagram in mind. Statistics have now made it very clear that most of the housing demand is in the low income sector. Most of it. The bulk of shortage is for households with incomes between 10 and 30,000 rupees a month. And if you scan the landscape of who's providing homes for whom, you'll find that it's actually the big developer is not providing homes for this category, not at the moment. Self-build is also not going to do enough for it in the cities. It is the medium and small developer in all the second, third and fourth tier cities, including the peripheries of the large cities, that is going to play the central role in overcoming this challenge. You are in the center of the growth of the nation. That's the point I really want to make. Something else that's happening in cities, and it's a subject for Mr. Suresh since he's over here. They say land is short, and so you have to go taller and taller. But we all know, it's common sense. As you build taller, you spend more. As you live taller, you spend more for living. Your prices, your costs for maintenance of the building and the operation of buildings goes up. Lifts, pumps, maintenance, so on and so forth, just becomes more expensive. So actually, not only is tall building unaffordable to build, it is unaffordable to live in. And this is something that we have to really convey to our planners and our policymakers. Don't push the cities into a state where only tall buildings are possible, because if you do that, 60% of the population will not be able to afford to live in the cities, and that's no way of living. Most affordable is 3, 4, 5 stories high, and 80% of our citizens can afford it. We also find that as you build taller, you consume more electricity in the operation of the buildings. As you grow taller, you consume much more steel in the construction of the buildings and other materials that cause a greater emission. They have greater embodied energy and therefore cause much greater emissions of carbon. So, to build low is economical, not only in money terms. To build low is also more environmentally friendly. Sustainable is economical. Sustainable is affordable. We found that approximately 60% of the embodied energy of construction, that is, the energy used in the production of materials for the building, for the construction of a building, 60% or 50 to 60% is attributable to the consumption of steel in the building. To the consumption of steel in the building. What we have found, even if you are designing for earthquake zone 3, up to 4 or 5 stories high, you can manage at 25 kilograms of steel per square meter of built space. 25 kilograms, if you do careful design. But what is the norm in industry? 35, 3.5 kg per square foot, they say. If you go taller, it becomes 4. If you go taller still, it becomes 5. But keep this target in mind. Intelligent structural design and configuration of building can do much less harm to the environment because you can design it with less steel. 4 to 5 stories high gives you the best results. Another thing, so that's about embodied energy, very quickly. Another thing, that as we will go into looking for better comfort in the home, even if I'm moving into a home today which has no air conditioning, 2 or 3 years down the line, at least one room is going to be air conditioned. Maybe it won't be used all the time, but sometimes it will be used. And then 10 years down the line, maybe there'll be more air conditioning that will be required. At least I look for air conditioned comfort, if not for air conditioning, right? So what do we have to do today? Even if air conditioning is not going to be assumed to be a part of the building, we have to design in such a way that the need for air conditioning in the future is reduced. Because if you don't do that, and as you continue to increase the construction of buildings and you build at such an enormous rate, you'll find that you're going to ask for so much energy just to meet the air conditioning demand of our urban living. So we did this survey to establish that in middle class homes, progressively 60% of the bill of electricity is attributable to air conditioning itself. 60% of it. You could go any part of the country. We did a comprehensive study of 4 to 5 story high housing, 8 story high housing, and then taller housing, with actual data taken from buildings that have been built. And we came to this interesting conclusion. We found that in the overall development, if you consider the terraces and the balconies as also accessible open space for the residents, you get more open space per person in affordable housing if you are 4 to 5 stories high, and you get less as you go taller, and even less as you go taller still. So open space provision, which is an integral part of the home environment, actually improves even when you achieve the same densities. Embodied energy of 4-story housing is much lower, is 30% lower than 8-story housing. Operational energy is much lower still. It is about 20% of a tall building. An incredible possibility that has arisen is that if you build 4 stories high, you've cleared the roof line. You've cleared the tree line, just at the tree line. That entire roof is now available for you for solar photovoltaics. As the government program and the technology and the financing structures, business models for solar photovoltaics become more and more accessible, what we have found is 85% of the energy demand of simple living in 4 stories is met by the sun falling on the roof on an annual basis. You can truly go towards net zero city life if you stick to 4 to 5 stories high. If you go 8 stories high, that potential drops. If you go 12 stories high, it will never be achieved. So if you're talking about cities of the future that are free of carbonaceous fuels, this is where the solution lies. Simple things about which way the houses should face. Don't face them directly into the sun. Don't face them directly into east and directly into west as much as possible. Keep the heat out. Build in such a way that the external wall area of the building is limited in relation to its plan area. Use a row housing principle or similar principles of design. It brings down not only the construction cost, it brings down the area of the walling on the external face, external finishing, right? Doors and windows, and the exposure of the inside space to the heat or cold of the outside. In every sense, it is more efficient. It is more environment friendly. It is also less expensive. And you can design in such a way that what you occupy today can be varied for the needs of the future. Again, very careful structural design can allow you to increase the size of a house by adding the neighboring house to your house, or the neighboring room to your house, or selling out your room to somebody who's a neighbor, etc. Because the structure is going to stay for 50, 60 years. Whereas the internal living spaces are going to undergo change as incomes improve, family structures change. Make the buildings future-proof, and this can be done at low cost. Extremely important. Do provide for external shading. Stop the sun outside the window. Don't let it come in. If you're going to let it come in, it's going to heat up the house. Simple ways that you see. On the right-hand side, you see a very interesting solution. If you go into the countryside, go into the old cities, the old days, you used to make windows out of solid shutters. And when glass came in, a little bit of glass came in at the top. When it is pleasant outside, you simply open the window, let in the air, let in the light. When it is very hot outside, you don't even want the sunlight, and there's enough sunlight outside when it is very hot for a little bit of glass to do the job. So a simple way of shading and keeping the heat out. But if you want more view and more contact with the outside for space or whatever else you might want, do provide an external shading system. Goes to balconies, and to every other element which is open to the outside. So, very important, to reduce the demand of air conditioning in the future, reduce heat gains from the sun through windows. Don't do this. Don't think you are up with the fashion. Just don't do it. Because this is what the occupant ends up doing, covering the window with a piece of cloth outside because you got it wrong in design. Okay? I think in Bangalore, this is the worst fashion trend that I have seen. Increasing glass just to make life uncomfortable. I don't see why people do it. Now you can have walling materials that give you better insulation. These are all available. They cost you perhaps 5% more than old traditional materials, but they give you much better environmental results. And they are lighter than the traditional materials. So instead of solid concrete block or solid brick, if you have hollow block or lightweight concrete block, you get the compensatory gain in the design of the structure because the structure has to be lighter. Insulate the roof. Roof insulation is an absolute must, and it doesn't add more than 0.5% to the overall cost of building. But what it means is that you can sell the top floor in the city of Jodhpur, not talking about Bangalore because here the climate is not so bad, but any hot climate, you can sell the top floor at the same price as you can sell the middle floor, because people have got to know that the top floor is the hottest floor. Insulate the roof. Insulate the walls. Here's for policymakers. Remove GST on these materials, sir. Okay? Make it affordable. Make environmental design affordable. Isn't that what our job is as government? Total profitability, comprehensive profitability, not only GST counting the exchequer. No. I think we've got to really move policy in that direction. Integrate design overall, whether it is the windows, whether it is the roof, including the plantation outside. Because if you're facing east and west, plant the tree on the left-hand side. That produces a curtain outside when the sun is setting or rising. If you're facing north or south, plant the tree on the right-hand side, which is like an umbrella, cutting out the sun from the roof, from the upper levels of the sky. We have done intensive simulations on the thermal performance of buildings that can be achieved by what we call passive design. No air conditioning, only orientation, shading, some insulation on the walls, reducing the size of windows, insulation of the roof, 4 or 5 things, and being able to open the windows sufficiently for night ventilation to cool the building down. And we have found that we can get 80% of the time in most climates across the country comfort without any need or demand for air conditioning. And all of this is achieved with practically no increase in the cost of construction. No increase. So here it is. Today I don't have an air conditioner. Tomorrow I have an air conditioner. But what we worked out was 0.75 ton air conditioner, window unit installed in the upper level with a ceiling fan that runs slowly is all that you need in a room, in a common bedroom. The industry is selling you 1.5 tons a minimum. All right? And it's less efficient because of the distance between the outdoor unit and the indoor unit. But this is all that you need in the worst climates. Well, 3 major goals. I won't go into the details except to touch upon the maintenance and regulation of services infrastructure. What we found is that once you have about 200 homes, collecting the waste, treating it on site, recycling the water for flushing and irrigation becomes affordable. 200 homes. At that unit, these technologies are now available, they're affordable, and they're very reliable technologies. That's already been done. For very large projects, environmental controls require you to do that. But for smaller projects, it is still doable, and then you qualify for the green rating on which the financing is dependent. But it's doable. Things will never be constant for all times. They will keep changing over time. Buildings must be designed to accept change, to accept gradual improvement as people's lives evolve. Here's something that's been built. See the shading frames outside? We haven't provided the shading yet, but people do it. It's very easy to do. Here you are. And it's about the benefits of community living. The infrastructure that is possible, the economy that is possible, the water supply, reliable water supply, treatment of waste, reliable electricity supply, all that is possible only because you're taking the advantages of community living. You're sharing the cost of your infrastructure together, which you cannot do if you build independent homes. And that's the possibility that we are looking forward to. Many ways of building very economically. New technology on the block. Interlocking hollow block, which can be assembled very quickly. You can lay one floor every week. Minimum reinforcement for 4-story high, 1.9 kg of steel per square foot. Again, for our policymakers, if you look at planning regulations, there's an awful lot of land wasted because of the reservations required by planning regulations, which are not required actually for living. And because of that, you're not able to achieve the densities. And if you're not able to achieve the densities with 30% ground coverage, you end up having to build taller, and then you're out of the range of affordability. Rethink that. You can make more affordable homes at lower heights, at higher densities. Mixed land use is another such question. Allow people to open shops on the ground floor if it's convenient for them, so long as they don't mess up the space. Have some rules about that, but don't have any segregation of shopping from residences. Internal spaces, my God, those rules are the most insane. They don't leave the occupant any freedom to do whatever they like. They don't leave the builder to allow freedom to the occupant. Why not? This is something that needs to be rationalized. And I think, Suresh sir, you're on to this task. I mean, look forward to some results. This helps all of us. It helps all of us. Thank you very much.